What's up, my wizards? It's Dev from SBMTG on the YouTube.com. Down there, we like magic. I would hope that you're aware by now. And I would also hope that you had a good time at your pre-release. It should be sometime during the weekend morning when you're watching this video. And if so, you've probably played at least one, if not more, pre-releases by now. Sincerely hope you had a lot of fun at those. You know what people like to talk about during pre-release, like between rounds and stuff, you're hanging out with your buds? People like to talk about the best cards in the set, obviously, and turns out we've already done that, so click that video if you haven't seen it yet. But the other thing that people like to talk about in pre-release all the time is their favorite cards, their pet cards from the set that they don't feel like are getting a whole lot of attention from brewers and maybe should be. And that's what this video is for. I can't go to your pre-release and shoot the breeze with you about Magic, but what I can do is talk about my top 10 favorite cards from the set that I don't think are getting enough press right now. So that's what we're going to do. The top 10 sleepers from Aether Revolt. I want to start the list with two honorable mentions. You guys know I love honorable mentions. I just want to talk about cards. So a couple of things I want to get out of the way real quick are Efficient Construction and Maverick Thopterus. Now, I really don't have much to say about Efficient Construction other than, like, this looks like a really budget card that's just, like, begging to be brewed around. So, you know, it doesn't look entirely fast or anything. It's probably not anywhere near good enough to be like Saheeli combo in the format. But if you're looking for a fun budget deck, this is probably a build around for that. And we're going to be looking into it. So can't wait for that. Efficient Construction at least looks like a lot of fun if you can get to the point in the game where it's actually getting you value. As far as Maverick Thopterus goes, though, I think that this actually may have, like, faux shiz constructed chops right here. We've seen a lot of talk through Magic writers and on Spikes on Reddit, you know, about this improvised deck that's in the format. And a lot of people think that the best payoff is probably the blue-black improvised deck, and I'm probably on board with that, all things considered. But in the blue-red one, doesn't have as much of a payoff, but Maverick Thopterus can come down turn 2 very, very easily and fuel future improvises and put 3 creatures on the board for you. If you're trying to go super low, this combo is pretty well turn 4 with Reckless Bushwhacker. You know, put out Maverick Thopterus, surge in with Reckless Bushwhacker, attack for 1,000,000 with everything you've played so far, and Thopterus, and the Thopters, and the Bushwhacker. Like, things can get really out of control very, very fast with just like Ornithopters and Bomat Couriers in that deck. So Maverick Thopterus may actually have real legs here, and I'd keep an eye on it. But let's start the list for realsies here. My number 10 is Secret Salvage, if only because of one other card in the format, and that's Hedron Alignment. Hedron Alignment just looks really fun with this. It's not too hard to get one into your graveyard, and then you play Secret Salvage, you exile the one in your graveyard. Hey, that's an alignment in exile. You're looking for that. You go get the other 3. It won't be too hard to discard one and play another, and now you got another in your hand. You win the game. Shouldn't be too hard, although it does look excruciatingly slow, and you need a pretty easy way to at least put one alignment in your graveyard. And you got to do this all pretty quickly too. So I don't think that it has the chops to really be a real constructed deck or anything. It's obviously not tier 1, but it's at least worth looking into as far as a fun budget deck that can win out of nowhere. So I'm really excited to brew around this. My number 9 is Indomitable Creativity. And this one is really a huge question mark. We're not sure. Like, people have said that you could do like Aetherworks Marvel stuff with this, you know, just sacrifice a little guy and then get an Ulamog, you know, like turn 4 or whatever. You can scry a huge creature up to the top of your deck, sacrifice a little guy, play the huge dude. You can do that too, but I'm not really sure. Like, we saw this talk when Madcap Experiment got spoiled in Kaladesh, but that never really led to anything, and I'm not really thinking that Creativity will either, but it's worth noting that it is a pretty cool card that could be easily brewed around in like a sort of standard, like, Miracles build? Like, that's how it's what it seems like to me. You just want to put like one huge creature on top through scrying methods, and then somehow sacrifice a tiny guy to Indomitable Creativity and get your Ulamog on like turn 4. Can't be that hard, right? Maybe it could, but still, fun card to at least look at. My number 8 is Whir of Invention. This looks like it will almost certainly see play in all the commander decks that can make 3 blue mana pretty easily, so definitely that. But we could also see a crazy standard combo that creates a bunch of mana. We're already seeing a couple of ways to do that in this format right now, and this, considering the improvise, could go get something really, really good for you. But there just aren't a whole lot of good targets in the format right now, even with a set full of artifacts and then another set full of artifacts. There's just not really a whole lot of incredible-ish that you can grab with this, but who knows? Maybe we'll see something pretty broken revolving around the card. It's a good card, obviously. I mean, anytime you make like a Court of Calling for a different kind of permanent, it's probably going to be at least noteworthy. My number 7 is Glint Sleeve Siphoner right here. This almost made it as number 10 on my list of the top 10 cards in the set. But I really don't think that it has any real home right now. You know, people are talking about green-black energy decks, and I'm just not really seeing that. So I'm just not sure where the card goes, but it is pretty obviously powerful. It's not Dark Confidant, but it's like one of the closest things we've seen in a really long time. It's better than Painseer. It's better than a Silent Visitor from what I can tell. So I like the card, and I want to like it even more than I do. I just have to have a reason, and hopefully somebody figures that out. My number 6 is Inspiring Sanctuary. We haven't seen a whole lot of buzz about this card, but I have seen some threads popping up that describe a blue-white improvised deck with Inspiring Sanctuary as like the key piece, and the big payoff being an Ulamog. Now, even the writers of these threads that I've seen have said, like, this deck needs some tuning. You know, it's not entirely consistent. We don't hit our payoff as consistently as we need to. Maybe the Marvel decks are better at getting a turn for Ulamog. All that stuff. But if people can figure out how to tune that deck exactly the right way, then we're talking about a deck that stands, you know, up to the same speed as Guardian Saheeli combo and like the blue-black improvised decks right now that we're seeing. Like, honestly, these, you know, those decks are turn 4 kills some of the time, and this one could also be that. So if that actually happens and people figure out how to build this deck exactly the right way, then we're looking at something that's no longer a sleeper. It's very real. Inspiring Sanctuary is the key piece in that deck, and so it's got to be on this list. My number 5 is Scrap Trawler, and this card just looks incredibly powerful to me, but it too has yet to find the right shell. Probably the best thing I've seen with this is a red-black Aristocrats deck that uses like the Atog Gremlin and some other stuff, you know, Zealport Cutthroat. And that looks like a maybe possible, but I'm not really sure about that build, all things considered. But it probably is the best thing I've seen featuring Scrap Trawler so far. This is another one of those cards that if we can figure out how to utilize it, it's just incredibly powerful. Being able to have that kind of, you know, resiliency is just very, very important. And in the artifact aggro decks, it doesn't even necessarily have to have a whole bunch of synergy behind it and like sack artifacts and stuff like that. Not really. It just kind of looks like it could just give you intrinsic value over the course of the game. So I like a lot about this card, and it's still kind of a sleeper just because I haven't seen that many ideas. But there are people trying to break it right now, and I hope they pull it off. The card looks good. My number 4 is Walking Ballista, and so far there's a little bit of a split when it comes to this card. A lot of people think that this card is garbage, and a lot of people think this card is real. I'm not sure, and I'm reserving judgment, but I definitely do think you can make a case for the card absolutely being real, yes. I've been experimenting with a couple of things with this card, namely the Cryptolith Rites deck. You know, you just play this in Cryptolith Rites and suddenly you get a huge guy. And you can play like Lifecraft Awakening and put a bunch of counters on him at the same time with all your mana, because you have more mana than God. And then like take all the counters off and deal a bunch of damage. That's possible too. So I've been playing around with this card, and some people are putting it as a 2 to 4 of in the green-black counters deck, where it's also really good with Winding Constrictor and stuff. So the card is boss and has some decent interactions, not to mention that now we can do the sort of Hangerback Walker thing in the Delirium decks. We want an artifact and a creature in the graveyard. Well, turn 1, we'll just play our Walking Ballista for 0, put it in the graveyard. And then later, by the way, in the green-black Delirium deck, we can just get it back with Liliana. We've got a board full of mana. We'll play like a 4/4, 5/5 Walking Ballista, kill everything, you know, or just like deal 5 damage to the face, then get it back again with Liliana. That seems like actually a pretty good play. So maybe possibly in those decks too, if green-black Delirium is going to be a thing still at all. Long story short, I just think the Ballista is a really, really flexible card that can, you know, it can just go in the graveyard as an artifact and a creature for Delirium. It's an artifact for improvised decks. It just plays to all the artifact synergy that we see in the format. You can play for 2, 4, 6, 8, 10 mana, whatever. You can kill small creatures. You can kill planeswalkers. You can kill players and stuff. Like, it just seems like there's so much play on the card to me, and I've always liked Triskelion, so you get a spot on my list, Walking Ballista. I really hope the card ends up being a thing. But number 3 is Metallic Mimic, and I heard a lot of people talk about how this card should have been on the main list of the top 10 cards in the set. I'm not really sure, because I have seen, again, split commentary about this. There's some people that just completely refuse to acknowledge its existence when they're building aggro decks. And then there's other people that are really, really excited about it in a couple of different things. You know, you can name like servos in some decks. This thing looks pretty good. You can name humans in green-white humans, and the thing looks pretty good in that deck. Seriously, it kind of does. There are other things you could do with this, but mostly servos and humans are the things that keep getting brought up. And there are some interesting plays with it too. So maybe, we'll see. Time will tell whether or not the card is actually serious, but there's a lot of really good text on it for tribal-based decks, definitely. And artifact aggro is a thing, and even though you can't name artifact creature, you can name servo, you can name construct, and that might actually be important, but don't forget now, that green-white humans deck, there is actually a real serious case for this thing. My number 2 sleeper of the set is Herald of Anguish. Totally serious, and it could actually be number 1. Couple of good things about this that aren't immediately apparent right now. Grasp of Darkness is seeing a rise in popularity because it stops Saheeli combo at instant speed. So it's seeing a rise in popularity, a lot of people playing Grasp. This does not die to Grasp. Fatal Push is probably the most tested piece of removal in the entire format. At this piece, easily the most tested piece of removal, and this gets over that whether they have Revolt or not. It makes your opponent discard every turn. That's fantastic if you can stick it against all these control decks, and sometimes you can stick it on turn 3 on the play because they really won't have a whole lot of answers to it by that early in the game, you know? And it also can kill smaller creatures, you know. Sometimes it'll kill bigger creatures too. So just look at all of the text on the card. It's all extremely desirable, and it's all flexible against different deck types too. It's a 5/5 flyer on turn 3, sometimes turn 2. So like everything about the card is super ridiculous, and I promise you, this card's worth it. If you haven't tested with it yet, give it a shot, because Herald of Anguish is maybe my favorite card from the entire set, and I'm not even joking. But my number 1 sleeper of the set, and this is something else that people were saying, maybe should have been on the main list, but I think it's flying just enough under the radar of a lot of players right now who are not taking it seriously, and they really should. My number 1 is Mechanized Production. No joke. Totally serious. Do you understand how easy it is to make 8 clues or 8 servos in this format right now? Right now, as far as servos go, we have SRAM's Expertise, we have Servo's Exhibition, we have Cogworker's Puzzle Knot, we have Servo Schematics, and we have like a 3-mana dude that poops out servos, if I'm not mistaken. So like, buh, that's ridiculous. Very, very easy to make 8 servos, not even hard at all. And then clues, not hard to do that either. There's like a Bant list that I've seen floating around that plays Thraben Inspector, it plays a Tireless Tracker, and then it plays Confirmed Suspicions. And I love Confirmed Suspicions in this Mechanized Production deck, by the way. That is the deck for it, because like you play Mechanized Production, you name clues, and then next turn, for the rest of the game, basically, you just leave your 5 mana up, and you've got a thing that says counter target spell, you win the game. Sounds like a stretch, but like it's kind of not. Like if you already have a clue and your Mechanized Production is just pooping out clues every turn, then 1 Confirmed Suspicions could both deny them a spell they need to win the game, or maybe a spell that removes your Mechanized Production, and you end up winning because suddenly you got almost halfway there with 1 spell. Like, Confirmed Suspicions looks so crazy in that deck. But not to mention Tireless Tracker looks crazy, especially considering we still have Evolving Wilds in the format. Thraben Inspector is obviously a crazy body that blocks and puts a clue out. Like, whether you're going clues or servos, the deck looks pretty real to me as long as you can stick a Mechanized Production. And sometimes you'll be able to play your Mechanized Production and just wait a turn and win. Not even hard. That's actually it. That's all I've got for now. I feel like that was a really, really short list. I want to spend more time with you guys, but I will really soon, actually, because Monday morning we're going to start putting out deck techs. It is finally that time. I love deck techs. My favorite thing about doing the channel, and it's most of you guys' favorite thing about the channel too, so can't wait to start doing those again. But I want to know what you want to see first. I've got a few decks almost ready to go, so I'm going to ask you what you want to see, and then I'll spend the next couple of days here banging it out, getting some games in, and figuring out a final list, and putting that on the YouTube. So here are your choices. Listen carefully. First deck is either going to be an aggro deck, a hardline control deck, Saheeli Rai combo, or an improvised deck. And I may do a double deck tech on that one. So, let me know what you want to see first. Aggro, control, improvise, Saheeli Rai combo. Those are your choices. Go forth to the comments. Let me know what you want to see first, and I'll spend the next couple of days playing all my games with that deck so I can get a list out for you guys by Monday morning. If you're new, make sure you sub so you get that content on Monday morning, and also make sure you hit the bell so that YouTube sends you a notification when I put it out. You can also like the video if you enjoyed the video, which I sincerely hope you did. I had a lot of fun making it. And go to the comments and let me know where I screwed up here. Let me know what I didn't put on the list, maybe what shouldn't be on the list even. That's interesting to hear. And how excited you are about some of these deck ideas. So do all the things in the comments section. It really helps me out whenever you do any of the YouTube stuff. And I'll see you guys later. I'm Dev from SB Mtg. Thanks for watching, my wizards.